For thousands of years, humanity has looked up at the sky and wondered whether we are truly alone. But what if the real question isn't whether visitors came to Earth, but how often they did, and how deeply they influenced our most sacred civilizations? Across deserts, mountains, jungles, and ancient holy sites, clues have been hiding in plain sight. Stone by stone, symbol by symbol, story by story. What ancient people described as gods descending from the heavens may not be myth at all, but memory, the ancient sky gods and the origins of human worship. Long before telescopes, satellites, or modern science, ancient civilizations shared a remarkably similar belief. Powerful beings descended from the sky and shaped the destiny of humanity. These beings were not vague spirits or abstract forces. They were described in strikingly physical terms, arriving in blazing chariots, emitting thunderous noise, wearing shining garments, and possessing technology far beyond human capability. From Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, the same core narrative repeats itself across cultures that had no known contact with one another. In ancient Sumer, the Anunnaki were said to come from the heavens to create and rule over humanity. Cuneiform tablets describe them as flesh and blood entities who required food, shelter, and even labor. In Egypt, the gods were believed to arrive from the stars, with the god Osiris closely associated with the constellation Orion. Temples and pyramids were aligned with celestial bodies not for symbolism alone, but possibly as markers, signals to the sky. What is striking is not just the consistency of these stories, but the reverence with which they were preserved. These were not folk tales told for entertainment. They were the foundation of law, religion, agriculture, and kingship. Ancient rulers claimed divine lineage, stating openly that their authority came from sky beings who selected them to rule. This raises an uncomfortable question. Why would early humans invent gods that behaved more like advanced visitors than supernatural spirits? Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that early humans, lacking scientific vocabulary, described advanced technology using religious language. A glowing craft became a chariot of fire. A helmet became a crown of light. A spacesuit became the skin of the gods. If this interpretation is correct, then worship may not have begun as blind faith, but as awe toward visitors who seemed godlike only because of their superiority. Sacred sites built for the sky. All across the planet, humanity's most sacred sites share a common feature: an undeniable connection to the heavens. From Stonehenge in England to the pyramids of Giza, these structures are not randomly placed. They are astronomically precise, mathematically advanced, and often aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and specific star systems. The question that continues to baffle modern researchers is how ancient people, without modern tools, achieved such accuracy. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a prime example. Its alignment to true north is more precise than many modern buildings constructed with advanced instruments. The layout of the three main pyramids mirrors the stars of Orion's belt with astonishing accuracy. To ancient Egyptians, Orion was not just a constellation. It was the gateway to the afterlife, the place where gods resided. Was this symbolic worship, or a literal map pointing to the origin of their visitors? In South America, Machu Picchu sits atop a mountain ridge, aligned with solar events and surrounded by stonework so precise that even today, engineers struggle to replicate it. The stones fit together without mortar, resistant to earthquakes and time itself. Nearby, ancient legends speak of gods who taught humans how to build and promised to return one day. Stonehenge, often dismissed as a primitive calendar, may have served a much greater purpose. Some researchers believe it functioned as a landing marker or energetic site, constructed to harness natural electromagnetic forces. Its builders transported massive stones over vast distances, something that should have been nearly impossible for Neolithic societies. Vimana, flying machines of the ancient world. In ancient India, Texts written thousands of years ago describe flying machines known as vimanas. These were not poetic metaphors or symbolic vehicles of the imagination. The descriptions are detailed, mechanical, and disturbingly technical. Ancient Sanskrit texts like the Mahabharata and Ramayana speak of aerial battles, weapons capable of destroying entire cities, and crafts that could travel underwater into space and across vast distances in moments. The Vaimanika Shastra, a text rediscovered in the early 20th century, goes even further. It outlines materials, propulsion systems, pilot training, and even cloaking abilities. While mainstream science dismisses these descriptions as mythological exaggeration, the level of specificity challenges that dismissal. Why would ancient writers include engineering-like detail if the subject was purely fictional? Descriptions of Vimana propulsion include mercury vortex engines and energy sources that resemble modern theoretical physics more than ancient imagination. Some passages describe the effects of weapons that sound eerily similar to nuclear explosions: bright flashes, extreme heat, and mass casualties. Archaeological evidence in parts of India has revealed areas of vitrified stone and unexplained radiation, fueling speculation that advanced weaponry may have been used in antiquity. If ancient Indians were merely fantasizing, they were doing so in a way that eerily parallels modern aerospace concepts. The Watchers and the Forbidden Knowledge. Ancient religious texts are often sanitized translations of much older, more controversial sources. The Book of Enoch, excluded from the modern Bible but preserved in ancient manuscripts, introduces a group of beings known as the Watchers. These entities descended from the heavens, took human wives, and shared forbidden knowledge with humanity: technology, medicine, astronomy, and warfare. According to the text, this knowledge disrupted the natural order and led to catastrophic consequences. The Watchers were eventually punished, imprisoned beneath the earth, while humanity was nearly wiped out in a global flood. To theologians, this is a cautionary tale about disobedience. To ancient astronaut theorists, it sounds like a narrative of extraterrestrial interference gone wrong. What makes the Book of Enoch particularly fascinating is how closely it aligns with stories from other cultures. The Sumerian tales of the Anunnaki, the Greek myths of the Titans, and even Mesoamerican legends of sky gods who brought knowledge all echo the same theme: beings from above altering human evolution. Genetic manipulation and the sudden leap in human evolution. One of the greatest mysteries in science is the sudden leap in human intelligence. For hundreds of thousands of years, early humans evolved slowly. Then, in a relatively short window of time, cognitive ability exploded. Language, art, agriculture, and civilization appeared almost simultaneously across different regions of the world. Traditional evolution struggles to explain this rapid advancement. Ancient texts provide an alternative explanation. Many creation stories describe gods shaping humans, altering their essence, or mixing their own substance with earthly beings. The Sumerians wrote of humans being created to serve the gods. The Bible speaks of humanity being made in the image of the divine. Could these stories be referencing genetic modification rather than metaphorical creation? Modern genetics has revealed anomalies in human DNA, segments that seem to appear suddenly without clear evolutionary precursors. Some scientists argue this is simply a gap in our understanding. Others quietly admit the data is unusual. If advanced beings intervened in human development, even briefly, it could explain the dramatic jump in intelligence and the birth of civilization. This idea challenges everything we think we know about our origins. And if it's true, it means humanity may not be the result of random chance, but of intentional design. The global flood and the erasure of a forgotten world. Across nearly every ancient civilization on Earth, there exists a strikingly similar story. A catastrophic flood that wiped out most of humanity. From the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia to the biblical story of Noah, from Hindu texts describing Manu to Mesoamerican legends of world-ending deluges, the flood myth is global, detailed, and persistent. Mainstream scholars often dismiss these accounts as symbolic morality tales or regional disasters exaggerated over time. But the sheer consistency of these narratives raises a more troubling possibility, that they are memories of a real planet-wide event. Ancient texts describe the flood not as a natural accident, but as a deliberate act, often initiated by higher beings displeased with humanity's actions. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the gods decide to destroy mankind because humans have grown too numerous and disruptive. Only one man is warned in advance and instructed to build a massive vessel capable of preserving life. This mirrors the biblical account so closely that it suggests both stories originated from a much older source. Ancient astronaut theorists propose that this flood may have been triggered by advanced beings attempting to correct a failed experiment. If humanity was genetically altered or technologically accelerated too quickly, the result could have been chaos, warfare, or environmental collapse. A global reset, whether through asteroid impact, polar shift, or engineered catastrophe, may have been seen as the only solution. Geological evidence supports the possibility of sudden, massive flooding events at the end of the last ice age. Meltwater pulses, submerged ancient cities, and unexplained sediment layers hint at a time when sea levels rose rapidly and coastlines disappeared. Entire civilizations may now lie beneath the ocean, erased from history and memory. If advanced societies existed before the flood, their knowledge would have been lost, except for fragments preserved in myth. The flood, then, may not be a myth at all. It may be the scar left behind by a forgotten chapter of human history, one in which humanity rose too fast, with help from the sky, and paid the ultimate price. Atlantis and the possibility of lost advanced civilizations. Plato's account of Atlantis has long been dismissed as philosophical allegory, a fictional warning against hubris. But Plato insisted that the story was true, passed down through Egyptian priests who preserved records thousands of years older than Greek civilization. Atlantis, he claimed, was a technologically advanced society that existed before a great catastrophe and was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. What makes the Atlantis story compelling is how well it aligns with flood legends and geological evidence. Plato described advanced architecture, complex engineering, and a society capable of manipulating natural forces. He also claimed Atlantis fell due to moral decay and misuse of power, a theme echoed in many ancient texts describing divine punishment. Around the world, researchers have identified submerged structures that defy natural explanation. Off the coast of Japan, massive stone formations known as the Yonaguni Monument appear carved, terraced, and deliberately shaped. In the Caribbean, the Bimini Road consists of large stone blocks arranged in straight lines beneath the ocean. In India's Gulf of Khambat, sonar imaging has revealed what appear to be city-like structures dating back thousands of years before known civilization. If advanced civilizations existed before the last global catastrophe, they may have possessed technologies lost to time. Ancient legends often describe crystal energy, sound-based levitation, and advanced mathematics, concepts that modern science is only beginning to revisit. These civilizations may have been guided, taught, or even ruled by non-human intelligences. Atlantis may not have been a single city, but a global network of advanced cultures that shared knowledge across continents. When the flood came, these civilizations vanished, leaving only distorted memories preserved in myth and legend. The pyramids as a global phenomenon. One of the strongest pieces of evidence supporting ancient global knowledge is the presence of pyramidal structures on nearly every continent. Egypt, Sudan, Mexico, Peru, China, and even Antarctica have all produced pyramid-like formations. These structures vary in style, but their purpose appears remarkably similar. Connection to the sky, alignment with celestial bodies, and the manipulation of energy. In Egypt, the pyramids were not simply tombs. There is no definitive evidence that mummies were ever placed inside the Great Pyramid. Instead, internal chambers, shafts, and resonant properties suggest a more complex function. Some researchers propose that the pyramid acted as an energy generator, using Earth's natural frequencies to produce power or facilitate communication. In Mesoamerica, Pyramids like those at Teotihuacan were explicitly associated with gods who descended from the heavens. The city's name translates to the place where gods were born. The Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon align with celestial events and underground waterways, suggesting advanced planning and geophysical knowledge. What is perhaps most baffling is how these structures were built. Massive stones weighing tens or even hundreds of tons were cut with extreme precision and transported over vast distances. No definitive explanation exists for how ancient builders achieved this without modern machinery. The idea that ropes, ramps, and manpower alone accomplished these feats strains credibility. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that pyramid building knowledge may have been shared by advanced visitors who used these structures for navigation, energy, or communication. The pyramids may have served as beacons, markers for those arriving from the sky, or tools for interacting with forces beyond human understanding. Ancient maps and knowledge that should not exist. Throughout history, maps have surfaced that depict geographical knowledge far beyond the capabilities of their supposed creators. One of the most famous examples is the Piri Reis map drawn in 1513. It shows the coastlines of South America and Antarctica with remarkable accuracy. Antarctica being depicted without ice, something that should have been impossible according to conventional history. The map's creator claimed he copied it from much older source materials, possibly dating back thousands of years. Similar anomalies appear in other ancient maps, which show precise longitudinal measurements that would have required advanced instruments to calculate. How did ancient civilizations possess this knowledge? One explanation is that it was inherited from a previous advanced society that existed before the last global catastrophe. Another possibility is that this information was provided by non-human intelligences with the ability to view Earth from above. Ancient texts also describe knowledge of planetary movements, precession, and cosmic cycles with astonishing accuracy. The Mayan calendar tracked celestial events thousands of years into the future. Hindu cosmology describes vast time cycles that align closely with modern astrophysics. These are not the ideas of primitive cultures guessing at the sky. They reflect deep understanding. If this knowledge did not originate from humans alone, then someone, or something, may have been teaching humanity long before modern civilization began. Sacred mountains and portals to the heavens. Around the world, certain mountains are considered sacred, forbidden, or connected to the gods. Mount Sinai, Mount Kailash, Mount Olympus, and Mount Shasta all feature prominently in ancient myths as places where humans encountered divine beings. These locations are often associated with strange phenomena, electromagnetic anomalies, unexplained lights, and altered states of consciousness. Mount Kailash, in particular, remains unclimbed and highly restricted. Ancient texts describe it as the axis mundi, the center of the world and a gateway between realms. Satellite imagery has revealed unusual geometric patterns on its surface, leading some to speculate it may house artificial structures beneath its rock and ice. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest these sacred mountains may have served as landing sites, observation points, or portals. Their elevation, isolation, and geological properties could make them ideal for interaction between Earth and advanced craft. In many traditions, prophets and heroes ascend mountains to receive knowledge or commandments from the gods. Moses encounters a being of fire and light on Mount Sinai. The mountain shakes, emits smoke, and produces thunderous sounds, details that resemble a technological encounter rather than a purely mystical one. If these sites were chosen deliberately, they may represent a global network of interaction points between humanity and visitors from the sky. Ancient texts as eyewitness accounts, not myths. Modern society tends to categorize ancient texts as symbolic, metaphorical, or purely religious. But for the people who wrote them, these records were history, preserved with care, ritual, and precision. Many ancient scribes believed their role was not to invent stories, but to document events exactly as they occurred. When examined through this lens, numerous ancient writings begin to resemble eyewitness accounts of extraordinary encounters rather than imagined mythology. In the Hebrew Bible, The prophet Ezekiel describes a vision that has baffled theologians for centuries. He speaks of a whirlwind coming out of the north, a massive object surrounded by fire, emitting brilliant light, and supported by rotating wheels within wheels. The object lands, causes the ground to shake, and produces a deafening sound. Ezekiel is clear that what he sees is physical, mechanical, and terrifying. He describes metallic components, symmetry, and motion, details that mirror modern descriptions of advanced craft. In ancient Japan, the legend of the Utsuro Bune tells of a strange vessel that washed ashore, carrying a woman with unusual features and indecipherable symbols inscribed on the craft. Witnesses described the object as metallic, sealed, and unlike any known boat of the time. The story was recorded not as folklore, but as an official account by local authorities. Ancient Roman historians, including Livy and Pliny the Elder, documented sightings of flying shields, fiery discs, and objects moving in formation across the sky. These reports were recorded alongside earthquakes, eclipses, and battles, suggesting they were considered real events worthy of historical record. If these texts were purely symbolic, why include such consistent physical descriptions across cultures and centuries? Ancient astronaut theorists argue that these writings represent humanity's earliest UFO reports, recorded in the only language and framework available at the time. The weapons of the gods and ancient warfare. One of the most unsettling aspects of ancient texts is their repeated references to weapons capable of immense destruction. In the Mahabharata, descriptions of celestial weapons sound disturbingly similar to modern nuclear warfare. One passage describes a single weapon that produces a blinding flash brighter than 1,000 suns, followed by intense heat, mass death, and long-lasting contamination. Survivors are said to lose their hair and nails, and entire regions become uninhabitable. Archaeological sites in India, such as Mohenjo-Daro, show evidence of sudden, intense heat that vitrified stone and fused bricks together, conditions that would require temperatures far beyond conventional fire. Skeletons discovered in the area were found lying in the streets, as if death came instantly and without warning. Similar accounts appear in ancient texts from other cultures. The Greek god Zeus wielded thunderbolts capable of leveling cities. The Norse god Thor carried a hammer that unleashed lightning and destruction. In the Bible, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is described as fire and brimstone raining from the sky, leaving the land permanently barren. Ancient astronaut theorists propose that these stories may reflect real conflicts involving advanced technology, either between human factions aided by non-human beings or between the visitors themselves. The gods, in this view, were not immortal beings, but powerful entities with weapons far beyond human comprehension. If such weapons were used in the distant past, it could explain sudden population collapses, radioactive anomalies, and the fear of forbidden knowledge that appears throughout ancient traditions. The impossible stonework that still challenges modern engineers. If you want to find the fingerprints of a forgotten technology, you don't need to look into space. You need to look at stone. Across the ancient world, there are construction feats that remain unexplained even with modern tools, modern cranes, and modern understanding of physics. It isn't simply that these structures are old. It's that they are precise to a degree that seems out of place in their supposed era. The stones are cut with angles that lock together like engineered components. The surfaces are polished so tightly that you can't slide a blade between them. And the scale, sometimes hundreds of tons per block, makes the usual explanations feel like guesses dressed as certainty. In Peru, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman contains massive polygonal stones fitted so tightly that earthquakes can't pull them apart. In Egypt, blocks at Baalbek in Lebanon, some weighing over 1,000 tons, sit as if placed by something that could move mountains. At Pumapunku in Bolivia, stone blocks are shaped with geometric precision that resembles industrial machining, including right angles and interlocking channels that appear standardized, almost modular. This is stonework that feels less like primitive labor and more like advanced manufacturing. Conventional explanations often rely on large workforces, time, and ingenious craftsmanship. Those factors were certainly real. But even with manpower and time, one question remains. How were these stones cut so cleanly, transported so far, and placed so accurately without leaving the kinds of tool marks and logistical traces we would expect? In some places, the quarries are miles away, across rough terrain, rivers, and elevation changes that would defeat simple sled and rope methods. It forces us to confront a possibility we tend to avoid. Either ancient people had tools we have not accounted for, or they received help from a source of knowledge and capability beyond what history credits them for. Baalbek, the platform of the gods. Baalbek is not just an ancient temple site. It's a technological insult to our assumptions about the ancient world. The Roman temples built there are impressive, but the foundation beneath them is the real mystery. In the massive platform known as the Trilithon, 3 stones each weigh roughly 800 to 1,000 tons. Nearby, in the quarry, lies the stone of the pregnant woman, even larger, and other megaliths of comparable size. These blocks are not merely large, they are among the largest stones ever moved by humans, if humans moved them at all. The mystery intensifies when you consider the precision of placement. These stones were not stacked haphazardly. They were aligned and integrated into the foundation with a confidence that suggests the builders understood weight distribution and engineering on a level that seems inconsistent with the tools officially attributed to the era. And Baalbek itself is wrapped in legend. The site was known in antiquity as a place of gods, a sacred platform where divine forces were honored and invoked. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest Baalbek may have been far more than a temple. They propose it was a landing platform, an engineered base designed to support something heavy and powerful descending from the sky. Ley lines, earth energies, and the sacred grid. There is a reason sacred sites often feel different. Many people report sensations of pressure, dizziness, tingling, or heightened emotion at certain ancient locations. While skeptics attribute this to psychology, believers point to a global pattern. Many sacred sites appear aligned along invisible paths called ley lines. These are theoretical energy lines said to connect powerful places like Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, Machu Picchu, and other ancient monuments. Whether ley lines exist as literal energy pathways remains debated. But the clustering of megalithic sites along certain geographic alignments is measurable. Ancient civilizations seem to choose locations not only for beauty or defense, but for something else. Geology, magnetism, underground water flow, and celestial alignment. Some modern researchers have found that many ancient sites are built above areas with unusual electromagnetic properties or underground aquifers, which can generate ionization and subtle energetic effects. If ancient builders understood these properties, either through observation, intuition, or advanced guidance, they may have constructed monuments to amplify or stabilize these energies. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest this sacred grid could have been used for communication, navigation, or even power distribution. If advanced beings visited Earth repeatedly, they would need stable reference points. A grid of aligned structures could serve as a global network, part beacon system, part energy system, part map. This could explain why so many monuments are aligned not just to the sun, but to specific stars and constellations. These were not random religious choices. They were coordinates. And once you consider that possibility, the Earth begins to look less like a random planet and more like a place that was studied, mapped, and possibly engineered. The builders. Human genius or outside intervention? At the heart of every ancient mystery lies a tension. On one side is human brilliance, the real, undeniable genius of ancient cultures who shaped stone, tracked stars, and built civilizations. On the other side is the growing pile of anomalies, precision without clear tools, global patterns without known contact, knowledge without obvious origin, and legends that describe visitors from the sky with suspicious consistency. The most responsible question may not be, was it aliens or humans? But what if it was both? What if ancient people were brilliant, but also received critical boosts at key moments? A teacher does not replace a student's effort. A teacher accelerates it. If advanced beings arrived and shared techniques, architecture, astronomy, agriculture, governance, it could explain sudden leaps in human capability without denying human agency. Many ancient stories describe gods not as constant rulers, but as intermittent visitors. They arrive, give laws, teach skills, demand rituals, and then depart, often promising to return. This creates a pattern: periodic intervention, followed by long stretches where humans attempt to preserve what they learned. Over time, technology becomes tradition, and history becomes religion. If that is what happened, then the greatest ancient monuments are not just proof of human greatness. They may be the leftover infrastructure of contact, a trail of stone breadcrumbs leading back to a truth humanity has always sensed but rarely dared to confront. Sacred relics that behave like technology. Throughout history, religious traditions have preserved objects said to carry divine power. These relics are often treated with reverence, fear, and strict rules of handling. Rules that, when examined closely, resemble safety protocols more than spiritual rituals. Some relics were said to emit light, cause illness or death when mishandled, and produce effects that sound eerily technological rather than mystical. One of the most famous examples is the Ark of the Covenant. Described in precise detail in the Book of Exodus, the Ark was a gold-covered chest lined with specific materials, topped with 2 winged figures, and designed according to exact measurements. It was said to house the presence of God, yet that presence manifested in physical ways. Those who touched the Ark without proper preparation were struck dead. Enemies who captured it suffered tumors and sickness. Moses was instructed to carry it using poles, never direct contact. Some researchers have proposed that the Ark functioned like a powerful electrical device or energy storage unit. The materials, gold conductors, insulating wood, layered construction, mirror components used in electrical systems. The warnings about proximity and handling could be early attempts to describe radiation exposure or electrical discharge. If an advanced object was left behind by visitors, ancient people may have preserved it as sacred simply because they did not understand its true function. Similar relics appear in other traditions. The Hindu god Indra wielded a weapon called the Vajra, said to be indestructible and capable of releasing immense energy. In Norse mythology, Thor's hammer Mjolnir generated lightning and could return to his hand when thrown. These are described not as metaphors, but as tangible objects with repeatable effects. The line between magic and technology becomes very thin when viewed through a modern lens. Divine encounters that sound like close encounters. Many of the most important religious figures in history describe encounters with divine beings that match modern UFO contact narratives with striking accuracy. The Apostle Paul's conversion on the road to Damascus is one such example. He is struck by a light from the sky, falls to the ground, temporarily loses his vision, and hears a voice speaking directly to him. Others nearby hear sound but see no one. Paul's life is permanently altered afterward, marked by a sense of mission and contact with higher knowledge. In ancient Sumer, kings described being taken up to the heavens, instructed by gods, and returned with laws and technologies. These were not passive visions, they were interactions. The beings spoke, commanded, and demonstrated power. If these were purely spiritual experiences, why do they align so closely with physical encounter reports from the modern UFO era? Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that religious revelation may be humanity's earliest framework for understanding contact. When a technologically advanced being appears to a pre-scientific culture, divinity is the only available explanation. The experience becomes sacred, not because it is abstract, but because it is overwhelming and inexplicable. The Star of Bethlehem and the Sky Event that changed history. Few celestial events have been analyzed as intensely as the Star of Bethlehem. According to the biblical account, this star appeared in the sky, moved, and came to rest over a specific location, guiding visitors from the east to the birthplace of Jesus. Traditional explanations propose a comet, planetary conjunction, or supernova. Yet none of these fully match the behavior described in the text. The star is said to move purposefully, guide travelers, and stop over a precise spot. These are not typical characteristics of astronomical objects. Ancient astronaut theorists propose an alternative. The Star of Bethlehem may have been a controlled craft, an observation or monitoring vehicle tracking a significant human birth. The Magi, described as wise men or astrologers, may have been trained observers of the sky who recognized the event as something extraordinary. Their journey was not random, it was directed. Their gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, may have symbolized recognition of a special role rather than simple worship. If an advanced civilization was monitoring human development, it would make sense for them to observe or intervene at pivotal moments. The birth of influential figures, religious leaders, reformers, unifiers, could be of particular interest. The star, in this view, was not a miracle in the abstract sense, but a technological phenomenon interpreted through the spiritual lens of the time. Angels, demons, and non-human entities. Religious texts are filled with descriptions of non-human beings who interact with humanity. Angels are often depicted not as gentle winged figures, but as terrifying entities whose appearance induces fear. In the Book of Revelation, beings descend in craft-like structures, unleash plagues, and wage wars that devastate the earth. Ancient astronaut theorists propose that angels and demons may represent different factions or types of non-human intelligences interacting with humanity. Some may have acted as teachers and protectors, others as manipulators or aggressors. Over time, their actions were moralized and mythologized, divided into good and evil. This interpretation does not require rejecting spirituality. It suggests that what ancient people called spiritual beings may have been physical entities operating at a level of technology indistinguishable from magic. The moral frameworks built around them reflect human attempts to understand and categorize experiences that defied comprehension. The Vatican Archives and Suppressed Knowledge. The Vatican Secret Archives, now officially renamed the Vatican Apostolic Archive, have long fueled speculation. Stretching for miles of shelving, these archives contain documents spanning centuries, much of which remains inaccessible to the public. Officially, access is restricted to protect fragile documents and maintain scholarly control. Unofficially, many believe the archives hold information that could radically alter humanity's understanding of history. Some researchers claim the Vatican possesses records of UFO sightings, correspondence with unexplained entities, and ancient texts that describe technological aspects of divine encounters in greater detail than public scripture allows. While definitive proof remains elusive, the Church's historical involvement in astronomy, calendar making, and preservation of ancient texts suggests it may hold knowledge far beyond theology. In recent years, statements by Vatican astronomers acknowledging the possibility of extraterrestrial life have only fueled speculation. Why would a religious institution built on divine creation openly discuss alien intelligence unless it already had reason to consider it? If ancient contact was real, then institutions that preserved history and doctrine may also have preserved knowledge of that contact, carefully curated, reinterpreted, or withheld to maintain social stability. Religion as memory, not myth. What if religion is not fiction, but memory? Not memory preserved with scientific accuracy, but memory filtered through symbolism, ritual, and reverence. As modern UFO sightings increase and governments begin to acknowledge unidentified aerial phenomena, ancient stories no longer feel as distant as they once did. They feel familiar, almost prophetic. The modern UFO era and the sudden return of the phenomenon. While ancient civilizations recorded encounters with beings from the sky through myths and sacred texts, the modern world has documented similar events using radar systems, military reports, photographs, and eyewitness testimony. The difference is not the phenomenon itself, but how close we are now to recognizing it for what it may be. The modern UFO era is often said to have begun in 1947, yet when examined closely, it appears less like a beginning and more like a resurgence. In June of that year, pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 crescent-shaped objects flying at incredible speed near Mount Rainier. Decades of shifting explanations only deepened suspicion. If there was nothing extraordinary to hide, why did the story keep changing? Ancient astronaut theorists argue that something fundamental changed after World War II. From this moment on, sightings of unidentified craft increased dramatically, particularly near military bases, nuclear facilities, and weapons testing sites. If non-human intelligences had been observing Earth for millennia, this escalation may have triggered renewed interest or intervention. Military encounters that defy known technology. Some of the most compelling UFO evidence comes not from civilians, but from trained military personnel. Fighter pilots, radar technicians, and naval officers have reported encounters with objects that defy known physics. Objects capable of instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic speeds without sonic booms, and seamless transition between air, sea, and space. Multiple radar systems, visual confirmation, and infrared recordings all captured the event. These were not confused civilians or faulty equipment. These were trained professionals witnessing something that outperformed every known aircraft. The craft described by Ezekiel, the Vimanas of India, and the fiery chariots of ancient lore may have modern equivalents now caught on camera. Declassified documents and government admissions. For decades, governments around the world denied serious interest in UFOs. Yet behind closed doors, investigations were ongoing. Declassified documents reveal that the US, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, and others all studied unidentified aerial phenomena extensively. In recent years, the tone has changed dramatically. Government agencies now openly acknowledge the existence of UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, admitting that some objects cannot be identified as foreign technology or natural phenomena. This shift represents a profound break from decades of ridicule and denial. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that this slow disclosure mirrors how ancient knowledge was managed in the past. Information was controlled, filtered, and released only when society was deemed ready. Just as ancient priests guarded sacred knowledge, modern institutions may be managing the narrative around non-human intelligence to prevent panic or disruption. Nuclear sites and the silent warning. One of the most disturbing patterns in modern UFO reports is their repeated appearance near nuclear weapons facilities. Missile silos have experienced unexplained shutdowns. Launch systems have gone offline during sightings. In some cases, multiple bases reported identical events at the same time. Former military personnel have testified that unidentified craft appeared above nuclear installations, hovered silently, and then vanished, sometimes after disabling weapon systems. These incidents were documented, investigated, and then classified. In ancient texts, gods often intervene when humans become too destructive or arrogant. Floods, fire from the sky, and divine punishment follow. The modern equivalent may not be overt destruction, but surveillance and restraint. The message could be simple. Humanity is being watched, and certain lines should not be crossed. Abductions, contact, and the human experiment beyond sightings. Thousands of people around the world report direct contact with non-human beings. Abduction experiences, while controversial, share common features across cultures and decades. Individuals describe being taken against their will, examined, communicated with telepathically, and returned, often with missing time and psychological aftereffects. Skeptics attribute these experiences to sleep paralysis or psychological phenomena. Yet the consistency of details, combined with physical traces such as scars, radiation effects, and corroborating witnesses, complicates dismissal. This idea aligns with ancient stories of gods creating, testing, and guiding humanity over generations. If humanity is part of a larger experiment, the implications are staggering. It would mean our development has been observed, influenced, and perhaps even shaped from the very beginning. Science begins to catch up. Interestingly, modern science is beginning to explore ideas once considered fringe. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the study of consciousness, and the recognition of non-human intelligence in animals and artificial systems all point toward a broader definition of life and intelligence. Quantum physics challenges classical reality. Time and space behave in ways that defy intuition. Dimensions beyond the familiar three are seriously considered by physicists. In this context, ancient descriptions of beings appearing and disappearing, moving between realms, or manipulating reality no longer seem impossible. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that what was once dismissed as fantasy may have been accurate, but ahead of its time. Humanity may finally be developing the tools and language needed to understand experiences recorded thousands of years ago. A civilization being observed. When viewed as a whole, the pattern is difficult to ignore. Ancient encounters, sacred sites, advanced knowledge, modern sightings, military encounters, and government admissions all form a continuous thread. Genetic anomalies and the question of human design. One of the most controversial ideas in ancient astronaut theory is the possibility that humanity itself carries evidence of non-human intervention. The most puzzling question is not that humans evolved, but how rapidly and uniquely we did. Compared to other species, the jump from early hominids to modern Homo sapiens occurred with startling speed. Brain size increased dramatically. Language, abstract thought, and symbolic behavior emerged almost simultaneously. Even today, scientists struggle to pinpoint the precise genetic triggers that caused this leap. Ancient texts provide an alternative narrative. The Sumerians wrote that the Anunnaki altered early humans to create a workforce capable of understanding commands and performing labor. If advanced beings possessed biotechnology beyond our understanding, subtle modifications could have accelerated human development without leaving obvious fingerprints, except for the anomalies we see today. The question then becomes not whether evolution occurred, but whether it was guided at key moments. Hybrid beings and the Nephilim legend. Nearly every ancient culture tells stories of beings who were part human and part something else. In the Bible, the Nephilim are described as giants and heroes of old. These stories are often interpreted symbolically, but ancient astronaut theorists argue they may be genetic memories. If non-human beings interacted biologically with humans, the resulting hybrids would likely stand out, physically, intellectually, or socially. Archaeological discoveries of elongated skulls in places like Peru and Egypt have fueled speculation. While mainstream explanations cite cranial binding, some skulls exhibit structural differences that go beyond simple reshaping. If hybridization occurred, it may not have been widespread. It could have been experimental, limited, or confined to specific bloodlines. This could explain why ancient rulers emphasized lineage so strongly. Royal blood may have been believed to carry something special, something not entirely human. Bloodlines, royal families, and divine right. For thousands of years, kings and queens across the world claimed they were chosen by the gods, or descended from them. This was not mere propaganda. In many cultures, royal blood was considered sacred, untouchable, and fundamentally different from that of common people. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs were considered living gods, intermediaries between heaven and earth. Their lineage was carefully controlled, often through intermarriage, to preserve what was believed to be divine essence. Royal families guarded their bloodlines not just for power, but because they believed it connected them to something beyond humanity. This also raises a disturbing possibility. If hybrid bloodlines existed, some may still exist today. Are non-human intelligences living among us? One of the most unsettling ideas in UFO research is the hypothesis that non-human intelligences may not only visit Earth, but may reside here. Some researchers propose that these beings could live underground, underwater, or even among us, hidden by advanced camouflage or biological adaptation. Modern UFO sightings increasingly involve objects entering and exiting oceans, leading to speculation about underwater bases. If advanced beings wanted to observe humanity without constant interference, remaining hidden would be the logical strategy. Advanced technology could allow them to blend in, alter appearance, or remain invisible to human perception. While this idea borders on science fiction, the line between myth and possibility becomes thinner as technology advances. Consciousness, telepathy, and non-human communication. Many contact experiences, ancient and modern, share one remarkable feature: communication without spoken language. Messages are transmitted directly into the mind. Modern abductees report similar experiences. They describe receiving information instantaneously, without words, often struggling to articulate it afterward. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that advanced beings may communicate primarily through consciousness rather than sound. This idea aligns with emerging scientific interest in consciousness as a fundamental aspect of reality, rather than a byproduct of the brain. If consciousness can be influenced, shared, or accessed technologically, then telepathic communication becomes less mystical and more scientific. Ancient rituals involving altered states, meditation, fasting, chanting, and the use of psychoactive substances may have been attempts to tune human consciousness to frequencies that allowed contact. The ethical question: experiment or partnership? If non-human beings have influenced humanity, the ethical implications are enormous. Were these interactions benevolent, exploitative, or something in between? Ancient texts portray gods as teachers, lawgivers, and protectors, but also as jealous, punitive, and unpredictable. Some ancient astronaut theorists propose that humanity may be part of a long-term experiment, observed, adjusted, and tested over millennia. Others suggest a partnership model, where advanced beings guided early humanity toward civilization. If we were engineered, do we truly have free will? If we were guided, are we being guided still? And if these beings exist, do they see us as equals, children, or something else entirely? The fear of knowing the truth. Perhaps the greatest barrier to accepting ancient astronaut theory is not lack of evidence, but fear. The idea that humanity is not alone, or not entirely self-made, challenges deeply held beliefs about identity, religion, and purpose. Institutions may fear loss of authority. Individuals may fear loss of meaning. Yet history shows that expanding our understanding of reality does not destroy humanity. It transforms it. The realization that Earth orbits the Sun did not end civilization. The discovery of evolution did not erase human dignity. A species at the crossroads. Again, just as in ancient times, humanity stands at a crossroads. Technology is advancing faster than our wisdom. We are reshaping our planet, our biology, and our future. Ancient civilizations reached similar moments, and according to legend, intervention followed. Whether through observation, guidance, or warning, the presence of non-human intelligence may be tied to these thresholds. The past suggests that when humanity reaches a certain level of power, it draws attention. If that is true, then the increasing pace of UFO sightings is not coincidence. It is a signal, crashes from the sky and the possibility of recovered craft. One of the most persistent claims in UFO research is that not all unidentified craft remain beyond our reach. According to numerous whistleblowers, leaked documents, and decades of rumor, some objects did not simply vanish back into the sky. They fell. If even a single non-human craft crashed on Earth, the implications would be greater than any discovery in human history. It would mean that advanced intelligence is not hypothetical, not distant, but tangible and recoverable. Within hours, that statement was retracted and replaced with a weather balloon explanation. Over the decades, this explanation evolved into more complex stories involving experimental balloons, crash test dummies, and classified projects. To many researchers, the constant revision suggests not clarification, but containment. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that Roswell may not have been the first crash, only the first modern one. Ancient texts occasionally describe gods falling from the sky, battles in the heavens, and divine beings dying. In some traditions, fallen gods are buried, sealed away, or transformed into sacred relics. If advanced beings have visited Earth for millennia, It is statistically plausible that accidents occurred long before radar and jets filled the skies. The idea of recovered craft bridges ancient and modern mystery. What ancient cultures may have worshipped or buried, reverse engineering and the black world of technology. If advanced craft were recovered, the next question becomes unavoidable. What did humanity do with them? According to insiders, the answer is reverse engineering. Slow, frustrating, and extraordinarily compartmentalized. Many whistleblowers claim that progress was uneven. Some components appeared beyond human science, relying on materials, energy sources, or physics that could not be replicated. Ancient astronaut theorists draw a parallel to ancient times. Early humans may not have fully understood what they were shown either. They imitated what they could, preserved what they couldn't, and ritualized what they feared. If non-human technology exists anywhere, this is where it would be hidden. Not out of malice, but because its revelation would destabilize every known system. Energy, economy, religion, and power. The materials that should not exist. One of the most compelling modern claims involves materials allegedly recovered from UFO incidents. These materials are described as ultralight, incredibly strong, and composed of isotopic ratios not found naturally on Earth. Ancient astronaut theorists see echoes of this in ancient artifacts described as metal of the gods, heavenly iron, or weapons that could not be broken or dulled. Meteoric iron was once considered divine because it fell from the sky. But what if some of it was not natural at all? The idea that advanced beings use materials engineered at the atomic or subatomic level aligns with modern theoretical physics. Energy systems beyond combustion. Perhaps the most disruptive aspect of non-human technology would not be weapons or vehicles, but energy. Ancient texts frequently describe gods who wield endless power. Chariots that never run out of fuel, weapons that recharge themselves, cities that glow without fire. These descriptions feel mythical until placed alongside modern reports of craft with no visible propulsion, no exhaust, and no apparent energy source. If such systems exist, they would render fossil fuels obsolete overnight. Energy scarcity underpins global economics. Abundant, clean energy would dissolve political leverage built on resources. Fact, fiction, or strategic ambiguity. So where does that leave the alien autopsy question? Is it fact, fiction, or something far more complex? Ancient astronaut theorists propose a third option: strategic ambiguity. A truth too destabilizing to confirm outright, but too real to erase completely. By allowing contradictory information to circulate, the subject remains unresolved, accessible only to those willing to look past denial and dismissal. This ambiguity preserves social stability while leaving the door open for gradual understanding. It is not a lie, but not a revelation either. It is a waiting state. The same strategy appears throughout history. Ancient knowledge was hidden in plain sight, encoded in symbols, rituals, and stories. Only when humanity developed the tools to interpret them did their meaning emerge. Alien autopsies may be part of that same pattern. Humanity's final question. If non-human beings exist, and if we have already encountered their remains, then the ultimate question is not what they are, but what we are becoming. Are we a species driven by fear, secrecy, and control? Or one capable of humility, responsibility, and wisdom? Ancient stories suggest that advanced knowledge is not a gift. It is a test. Civilizations are not destroyed because they learn too much, but because they misuse what they learn. Alien autopsies, whether real or symbolic, force humanity to confront its relationship with the unknown. Do we dissect out of curiosity or out of dominance? Do we seek understanding or superiority? The sacred meets the cosmic. From ancient temples aligned to the stars, to modern laboratories analyzing unexplained materials, humanity's journey has always been the same. We look upward, we reach outward, and we try to understand forces larger than ourselves. The sacred and the cosmic were never separate. They were divided only by interpretation. What ancient people called gods, we may now call non-human intelligence. What they called miracles, we may call technology. But the underlying experience, the encounter with something beyond human understanding, remains unchanged. Alien autopsy is not just a question about bodies on tables. It is a question about humanity's readiness to face the truth. Because if we are not alone, then we never were.